Yesterday, last week Friday, we started looking at rules, guided balance and practical. We came up with some, I think I've started, those of you that are there discussing. Yes, ma'am. We started by discussing during marking of practicals or marking the biology drawings, what NL, TL, SC/MG, and stands for. And then the details and level. Now this thing is not actually meant for you. By writing it out like this, it's meant for the examiner who is marking the diagrams in the practical times and diagrams during drawing exams. It is still the same rules that is being used to mark biology drawings if it is essay writings in terms of exam. That is also guiding the practical drawings or during practical exams. So last week when we started talking, we mentioned the materials that is always expected to be with you once you have come for biology class. And that has to do with your biro, although biro is not actually fully needed except by writing your names if it's in the exam. Then in terms of the diagrams, we'll need your pencil, head grip pencil, well sharpened, you need a good sharpener, you need razor or dissecting sets, you need eraser, very good fine ones, and then you need your ruler. Actually you need your practical, in terms of schoolwork, your practical notes. That is for diagrams. Although for now, during exam, they will give you an answer script that is plain. In as much as this is your system now, the questions and the diagrams, everything goes in the same question paper, unlike then. They will be given a different question paper and then a plain answer script that you have to write. Now when it comes to that writing, even in terms of practical, it is actually advised to use your biro that you have to answer the question, but the diagrams, that is where I am more concerned. When you are given a question that has to do with the diagram carries more of the marks. If the question is, the whole question, you have 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and probably 1D or 1A have to do with the diagrams. If the whole of that number is 20 marks, the diagram will carry 10 marks. The other remaining 10 marks will be shared among the other sub-questions attached to it. So last week we started discussing this, the rules guide. We mentioned that this one had to be, is for what? Guide. This one had to do with the size or magnification. Am I correct? Yes. And this had to do with the neatness of lines. What is missing here? What is missing here? M-A-G-N. Magnification. Am I correct now?
I is not enforced. You don't need
okay, and am I correct now? Yes. Okay, we have clarity. Clarity of lines. And here had to do with the details. These details determine on what you are asked to draw. And then the labelings of the diagrams. I think when we were discussing yesterday, last week, we stopped here. Do we remember that? Yes. Neatness of line. And that has to do with the lines of labeling. And you cannot say because your teacher have drawn the diagram on the board and as well, just use hands to draw from the point level to the point you will label. Now, if peradventure, let me use Who has an idea of what I'm drawing? Who has an idea of what I'm drawing? Who has an idea of what I'm drawing? Just dicot stem. I am trying to make a sketch diagram a little bit of the internal structure, listen up, of a dicotyledonous stem. Internal structure of a dicotyledonous stem showing the transverse section. Now, assuming this is what you are trying to draw, or probably the diagram is already there. Remember we said there are two main types of practicals. The one you do during private exams. What do we call the private exams? The ones you do during November, December, and that is why you have the GCE or the NECO November, December. Those ones are private. Actually, it's not meant for you. That exam is meant for those who have done an exam, in one way or the other, they're missing one or two papers. But although these days, only SS3 are actually allowed to make an attempt to have an idea how the external exam will be like. But of the truth, that exam is not meant for you. Now, in that aspect, when it comes to the diagrams are being called the specimens, the ones they drew, but already is not there. But the one that you expect during public exam, that is the one that the exam you're going to be facing between May, June, and June, July. And that is the WAEC, May, June, and NECO, June, July. There and then you'll be given an object. And these objects are presented with the name spacemen using alphabets to stand for it. It might be up to 6 or 7, or it might be up to 17. And that 17 or 2 or 3 will be labeled or called. I said all the objects in front of you are called images. Are called specimens, and they are live one. Not that they are live, they are maybe fresh, preserved, but not real life in them, depending on what you are asked or what the teachers are asked to prepare. But in trying to prepare in class, like the practical we're going to have tomorrow, so you see objects that have normal objects, although some of them might be living or come from living things, others might come from non-living things, but the one we are going to see tomorrow is pure living things. So I am using this just to talk about the diagram. We have looked at the title. Most of the time, like I said last week, when you are given a question or asked to draw, you deduce the title from the question. If there is nobody who asks you anything about it and nobody cares, I want you to have an idea of this. It does not concern you. Like I said, these are the rules, the things that the examiners will look out for to score you. To me, I call it dash marks. Just dash. Now, the title, if you're asked or given the set, identify the specimen of the diagram or what you are going to be given, like what we're going to do tomorrow. Identify, give a title to it. You don't need to be. So this one stands. If we say title, our title here is the diagram showing the internal structure of a dicotyledonous plant. That is your title. So if we call it specimen A, and I said specimen A, identify specimen A. That is in terms of when you have drawn the diagram, you said the internal structure of a dicotyledonous stem. By looking at that internal structure is a tick, and that is one mark. And then the size we talked of, we said proportion. They will give you proportion, although that proportion is common during essay writing and as well as the normal practical. You have the object in front of you and you're asked to draw using the proportion. They will not do proportion. Say make a well-leveled diagram of specimen A using 10 to 12 cm long. So which means we'll talk so much about it, whereby you measure 10 using your ruler. to 12, you just put a little bit dots. And in that case, they will say large. So when you're drawing the diagram, like we have said here, let's assume this is, with my ruler, I'll just use a dot. In some areas, some of you were taught, I don't know if they've taught you that way, but I know there are some students previously, they will measure 8 cm like this, and measure 12 cm like this, and then draw square. That is wrong. What it means, you use your ruler place. Let's assume this is this place is where you have your 1 from that ruler, and this is where your 8 ends. Sorry, this is where your 10 ends, and this is where your 12 ends. What it means is that when you're drawing the diagram, your diagram must not be less than 8, and it must not be more than 12. Did I say something now? Yes. It must not be less than 10, sorry, and must not be more than 12. Whatever you want to do must be there. And it must not be small, because you're given a large open space for your diagrams. And most times, you might have 2 edges, and you are advised you to move a little bit at the left edge to draw the diagram to leave more space for your levelings. Did I say something now? I have discussed this last week. I believe we still remember what we said about it. Do we still remember? Yes. Please, if you do want to answer me, let me know I'm not talking to myself. So in that case, when you finish, in order to get this, for the diagram, if it is for theory, and you have already given the proportion, assuming you're not giving proportion, most of the time these days, before then, the rule, when you look at the 2 rules, if you use your ruler to measure it, it's 1 cm between that and the second line. So when you are not giving proportion, depending, these days from your scripts, your answer scripts, there isn't any rule line for biology or some other subjects. It's just plain a space. They'll ask a question and leave a space for your answer. Am I communicating? Those of you that wrote the GCE, is there anything ruled there? The question is inside the answer script, and there's a space left for you to answer it. In that case, but if it is in the normal note, and you have a rule sheet like this, can I have this? You have a rule sheet like this. Between this 1 and 1 is 1 cm, you can equally try it. So what you do is to count 10 lines on your own, and make sure you draw a well-leveled diagram. Large there, at least to get to 9. No proportion was given to you. But if there is proportion given to you, you follow the system we're talking about now and measure it out. Am I communicating? Yes. Are you sure I'm communicating? Yes. And then draw your diagram. You cannot have that proportion and you draw one small thing like this, as if you're doing it inside your note, and the whole space is left. But when looking at this, if it's me as an examiner, I'll put question mark, and you have scored 0 there. Yes, what am I marking? You didn't follow the proportion. You didn't even go half of it. And by the time you draw the main diagram, there might not be any spaces for you to do your proper leveling. Am I saying something now? So from there, when you have finished, and this is my cut area. Then I will use this. I will measure with ruler. Already I know I've been given 12 cm. With this, it's too small. So the 12 cm, the difference is much. I might have 1.5 here. If I divide 12 by 1.5, what do I have? Mathematicians. 6. That is when you approximate. That's 6. So I might say mg times 6. Assuming it is 1, 1. Yes. You know, yes. I will just put it like, by me looking at this, and I see it. Although I might pity you, because as an examiner, I'll keep my ruler by my side. Before anything, I will measure it. If you have written mg times 6, and I measure it is more than 12, or less than 8. I'll put a dot here for you. And that's supposed to be 1 mark. Then when it now comes neatness of line, this is where we have your lines of leveling, which you must do with ruler. Your lines of leveling must touch the point level. If I should put this, you can't say that Messiah did not use ruler when I was doing it on the board. I use my bare hand to draw. If you don't use ruler, no matter how straight you feel it is, we will know. And you will lose your mark. Then we'll have this. Then we'll have this. There's supposed to be 2 lines here. Then we'll have this. Then I'll have this. Then I'll have this here. Now, this is where I'm going. Who will remind me what this is? This. So you've done internal structure, other transport system, that's supporting tissue, you draw this diagram. What? The vascular bundles. What are the things that make up the vascular bundles? The polycama is not there. The xylem, phlegm, and the cambium. And the cambium comes when there is secondary growth. In a young herbaceous plant, the cambium might not be there. But this one that is advanced, you will see the vascular cambium. Am I saying something now? So the development of the vascular bundle. Did I say something now? They make up the vascular bundle. Now coming to level this. In this place, we'll have the sclerenchyma together with it. And here, this is supposed to be the phlegm. This is supposed to be the vascular cambium. What is this? The xylem. So I might try to bring the xylem and let's assume I try to create line here. And I now do like this. Why laughing? Many of you do that. And if I check your biology note, I might see something like this. Are you sure? Are you very sure? Now, in my leveling, I'm expected to level horizontally. It can be both sides. Which means I can level here and level here. And that is horizontally. Am I saying something now? Your levelings must not be scattered. I cannot level horizontally and level vertically. It is not done. My point of my line of level must touch the point I am leveling. What is this place? Who remember here? Huh? Epidermis, thank you. That's the outermost covering, isn't it? Yes. Now, after the epidermis, even within the epidermis, we're not going deep, because what we're going to do tomorrow, you might not actually see all these ones. But that is what I expect you to do. So after this, what do we have here? Huh? Cortex is an open zone. And when it comes to the stem, that is where we have well developed and properly seen. Cortex contains 2 things. In the internal structure of the roots, we might not fully see them, but it's there. But in the internal structure of the stem, they are well modified. So the cortex consists of 2 things. And what and what? It is well developed in the stem, whether it be monocot and dicot. The first one in that cortex, what do we call it? In that open zone. What? You have done epidermis now. Epidermis is the outermost covering. They call it kaima. God bless you. It's the calling kaima. I know some people call it calling chima. Some people call it calling chima. And after the calling kaima, what do you have? What do you have? Oh my God. After the calling kaima, what do you have? Parenchyma. Parenchyma. See, the one thing in biology pronunciation, you pronounce it as spellings. Because one, the spellings must be correct for you to score. We are not doing phonetics in terms of biology. Some people might call it parenchyma. Some people might call it parenchyma. Some people might call it parenchyma. I call it parenchyma. I call it parenchyma. And I call it scarenchyma. And scarenchyma, in terms of the internal structure of the roots, it is not well modified. In that case, they are called pericycle. I'm sure you can still remember these diagrams. You drew them in SS2. You drew them in SS2. They are looking at me like, come on, they are not answering. If you did not draw them, nobody will ask you. If that question comes out, both practical and theory, all that have assumed that you should have done it, you would have done it. So you still have to go back and look at those things. Am I communicating? So where am I going? Look at this. You are advised to label in capital letters. That doesn't mean when you label with small letter, it will not be marked. But because of our writings, some of us, our E look like A. Some of us, our I is dancing. You understand what I'm saying when it comes to writing? Some of us, our Q looks like, you know, there are some people that write A like this, they give it 10. I do not look like Q. So when you label with capital letters, capital letter is capital letter. There's no way, it might not be too fine, but the examiner will see it well. Did I say something now? And like I said earlier on, you are only advised, is an advice, to draw all your diagrams with pencil and still label with pencil. Why? When you're cleaning with a good eraser, it still remains neat. But if you have drawn with biro and you need to clean, it can never clean well. Did I say something now? You can draw with biro, nobody will penalize you. Without your biro, and you label with biro. So when you draw with biro, you label with biro. You draw with pencil, you label with pencil. But you're highly advised to use pencil instead of biro. You draw with pencil, you label with pencil. If there is a mistake and you come back and remember, you can easily clean it and it will still look neat. Then your line of labeling must not cross each other. Like here. Rather, what you do to avoid this, what you do to avoid this is to bring it out and take it this way. Bring it out and take it this way and label it. Did I say something now? So now, have I said something?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand what I've just said?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when all these things are done, some would have asked a question. Assuming you're asked to draw fish, and you know when you're drawing fish, it will be more like this. Where you have you know, if you draw your diagram like this, you start thinking about leveling horizontally, and you are given a proportion, maybe 8 to 10 cm. When you draw like this, you look at the 8 to 10 cm. No. You are highly advised. When it comes to diagram like this, or diagram of a lizard, you know they almost have the same pattern. If this is your answer script, and you have measured your 8 to 10 or 10 to 12, please turn it like this and draw your diagram. When you finish drawing, turn it like this and draw your diagram. When you finish like this, turn it back this way. You think what I said? I should repeat myself. Okay, for those of us at the back. You are given a proportion, and now the proportion has to go from here to here. Am I communicating? So in order to get the real proportion, because if you draw like this, it will not cover the proportion you are given. And at the same time, you might not have enough space to label. What to do with your answer script, you turn it this way. When you turn it this way, you draw the diagram and be mindful of the proportion and the space here. So you draw your diagram and now turn it back. It will give you what you want. And you now label this way. You now label horizontally and it still give you the proportion. Is that clear? Yes. The same thing when you're drawing diagrams like the lizard. The same thing in that way. Am I saying something now? Yes. The same thing goes when you ask the diagram of an adventitious vegetative propagation in terms of root tuber, and what you're given is carrots. You still have to turn it so that you have the proper labelings. Is that clear? Yes. Are you sure it is clear? Yes. Do you understand that? Yes. Now, back to the clarity of line. If those things are being done, and they look at your lines of labeling, it is neatly done. The lines are done with biro. The labelings are neatly done. The lines are not crossing each other. By the time I see it, I'll give you a full tick. Then coming to the clarity of line, this is where most wahala is. Even for us, the teachers. In that clarity of lines, we're talking about the lines of the diagrams. 1, your line of the diagram must be thin and clear to be seen by the examiner. The lines of the diagram must be thin and clear that the examiner will see what you have drawn. Number 2, your lines of drawing must not be woody. It is not fine art. It must not be woody, it must not be shady, and it must not be broken. I repeat myself. Your lines of drawings must not be woody, must not be shady, must not be broken. It must be thin and clear, so that the examiner will see it well. Like I said, most of the time, it is not easy to make that mark. Did I say something now? If you look at my diagram, you will see that the line is broken. You will see that the line is broken here. You will see that the line is broken. If you look at my diagram, even it's broken here because I cleaned it. Although it is not shading. So there's no shading in biology. You might say you see shading in the textbooks. That is to differentiate some certain parts in terms of diagram. What you do, if you want to do that, I will still get to that. It must not be shading. It must not be broken. It must not be woolly. You are not doing fine art. Am I saying something now? We are not doing fine art. There are some of us who are fighting with our pencil, especially when you don't use your mouth, even without holding the pen. The head will move like this, and you're now drawing. You clean. That is not it. It must not be broken. It must not be woolly. And it must not be shady. It must be thin and clear, neatly drawn. That is it for that. When we notice that, although these days, most time this mark is not buttoned, but when it is clear a little bit, it might be only one broken somewhere. You can have this. Like I said, even we, the teachers, the examiners, it's not that easy. For most diagrams you're asked to draw during the exam, your teacher will as well draw it. And that is part of the things that we use in scoring. Whatever you're asked to draw, most time you draw 2 diagrams. One of the diagrams, your teacher will as well draw it in the wire example. And then you will package among your students. And that's why most of the time, when they give them instructions, you have to pay attention on the one. Because it might be 2 things. Either this or this. And your teacher provided one. And the other side, you are running to provide another. It's the one your teacher wrote that they will use in judging or marking you. Did I say something now? Have I said something?
Yes, ma'am.
Because what he has done is what will be used partly to judge you. Now, every life specimen must be drawn with your hand. I just mentioned something like this. Because no living thing is purely straight. Even if it feel in your textbook, the line is so fine, and you want to use a compass to draw that circle. So long as it's a living thing, it is wrong. You will use your hand to draw it, especially when it comes to, example, things like this. Or, I don't know how many of you if you have done fruits in your school, where the cut is part of the things we'll treat in practical before you leave, or before the end of this program. You might be asked to cut either transversely or vertically, longitudinally or transversely, or cross-section. Am I saying something now? Okay, transversely or longitudinally or vertically. So it depends on what you're asked to do. So when you're reading instruction, read the instruction very well so that you know the short of what you're asked to do and you follow that instruction. And that is where the details come from. The details for different things in terms of specimen you are given is the details are different depending on the specimen and what you're asked to draw. One, they look at the shape, is that thing, this particular thing, is it there, is it shown? Then another thing, whenever you're asked to cut, whatever you cut, either longitudinally or cross-section or transverse section, you represent the edge. You find out that the edge is thick. You represent thickness with double line. I repeat myself. You are asked to cut either longitudinally or transversely. You represent when you're drawing with double line. You find out that, and that is one of the things in details, they'll say, is the line of the edge double? If it is double in terms of detail, a thick. Now this thing shows thickness here because you cut it. If it is not cut, you can use just a single line. Like those fruits, orange. But once you're asked to cut, you represent with double line to show the thickness of the edges. Most time when we're taking orange, we cut it, isn't it? Most time when we want to use tomato, we'll cut and dice depending on the way we want to use it. So once you cut, you show with double line. When you drew the diagram of the kidney, just to see what is inside the kidney, the longitudinal section of a mammalian kidney, if you have drawn it well and you check your textbook, the edges is being presented with double line before showing the cutis and the medulla. Am I saying something? Yes. And the other parts. So what am I not saying? Whenever you're asked to cut, you represent the edges with double mark, with double line. Is that clear?
Yes.
And if you want to show forth, like here we have the collocaima, the parenchyma, and you want to differentiate them, you can use dots instead of shading. You can use dots instead of shading. Even the edge. In your textbook, you might see it shaded with a black color. In most of the things, please, either you use dots to show them. You don't shade in biology. No shading is allowed in biology. You just use a double line. The examiner will know exactly what he's doing. Am I saying something now? Yes. Is it actually clear? Yes. Is it clear? Yes. And that brings us to the clarity of lines. Don't forget, HB pencil. We don't need 2B pencil. 2B pencil is for fine art, for those doing arts. But HB pencil is what is needed. Very good one. And you have your eraser. Please, when you're coming tomorrow, bring your eraser. Bring your eraser blade. Bring your eraser. Then your pencil, your ruler neatly done. You'll be given a canvas. There are things we have treated. Like when we did the reproductive system in plants. What is the main organ for reproduction in plants? The flower. So you will see flower tomorrow. So based on that, and we're going to handle transport system in plants. Under transport system in plants, there are 3 major things in terms of transportation. Is it 3 or 4? We have the first one, the movement of water and mineral salts. Where? Where? The xylem. Along the xylem. Something will absorb the mineral salt and water from the soil. And what is that? And the xylem will take the function of conducting it from the root of the plant to all parts of the plant. So we want to confirm in terms of practical if it is so. I've just told you now. We'll just explain it and I will do it and give you the questions to answer. It's a wide questions that have been asked before. So the same thing with the flowers. We have treated flowers. Just a common one. There are 3 major common ones that was used, and that is what you see most time in your past questions. For this your stage, there are different various flowers. And what are the 3 major flowers? Okay? Hibiscus. So one of them, one of the 3, you will see. And I think I brought them. It's only flamboyant that we did not see. And I described where you will see flamboyant. You see it by April, May, it should be outside. It is much in Baptist Girls College. And that's Baptist Primary School. I think you have it in Lishabi as well. And along the road if you're going down. But for now, it's not there. But spread of overdose is everywhere. Even presently now. So if you're expecting either of the 2, hibiscus is also available. And then you have done supporting tissues in mammals, whereby most emphasis was laid in terms of practical, that is the vertebral column. We have 5 main parts of the vertebral column. And the 5 main parts of the vertebral column have a common characteristics. And some of them have specific features that differentiate them from each other. Any questions so far? Jesus! What's organic evolution? Now I'll take 5 minutes.
Adaptive changes.
What?
It's not total of adaptive changes.
Okay.
From pre-existing or to organisms.
God bless you. Another question. The theories of organic evolution. Uncle, remind me your name, my darling, at the back there. DVHS. No, you wearing cardigan, the person beside you. Remind me your name, please. Give me one of